Tonight's story is about a daring escape from Alcatraz that shocked the world. On the night of June 11, 1962, at Alcatraz prison, the island stronghold the world called the Rock, a place believed to be impossible to escape, 3 inmates decided to challenge that legend. Using crude tools and months of careful planning, they pulled off a bold breakout that left everyone asking the same questions. How did they widen those tiny ventilation openings? How did they build a raft from simple materials? And what happened to them after they vanished into the cold waters of San Francisco Bay? In 1934, Alcatraz Island was converted from a military post into a maximum security federal prison, a place designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in America. Perched in the middle of San Francisco Bay, its location earned it the nickname The Rock. Everything about the prison was meant to make escape impossible. Armed guard towers, patrols, alarmed corridors, and strict, highly trained guards. Even the surrounding water worked as a form of security, cold year-round, with powerful currents that would pull swimmers away, and rumors of sharks made the sea seem even more deadly. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a symbol of fear. Prisoners who lived there told tragic tales of hopelessness: thick concrete walls, cramped cells, long nights, and waves slamming the rocky shores. From the moment it opened in 1934, many inmates tried to escape. Most failed, many were killed, and the failures only strengthened the prison's legend as inescapable. Let me tell you a few of the most famous failed attempts to show you just how difficult escape really was. The first notable attempt came in 1936. Joseph Bowers, assigned to burn trash, suddenly ran and tried to climb the fence at the island's edge. Guards in the watchtower opened fire. Bowers fell from a great height and died. This desperate dash became known as the escape of despair, showing how far some inmates were willing to go. On December 16, 1937, 2 inmates, Theodore Cole and Ralph Rowe, working in a prison workshop, quietly removed iron bars from a window and slipped away during heavy fog. They jumped into the water and were never seen again. Because the currents and seas were so violent, authorities assumed they drowned, but no bodies were found. On January 13, 1939, 5 prisoners, Arthur Barker, William Martin, Rufus McCain, Henri Young, and Dale Stamphill, staged an escape from a highly secured part of the prison. They used homemade tools, reached the shore, and tried to construct a raft, but the guards spotted them. Gunfire erupted. Arthur Barker was killed instantly. Dale Stamphill was seriously wounded, but survived. The other 3 were recaptured and put in solitary confinement. Over the years, more attempts followed and failed, until April 14, 1943, when a violent uprising known as the Battle of Alcatraz took place. 6 inmates, Bernard Coy, Joseph Kretzer, Sam Shockley, Clarence Carnes, Marvin Hubbard, and Moran Thompson, overpowered guards, seized the armory, and tried to break out through the cell block and the prison gates. The takeover turned into bloody combat with U.S. Marines. After 2 days of fighting, the standoff ended. 3 inmates were killed and others were captured. Shockley and Thompson were later executed. All these failed attempts reinforced the idea that Alcatraz was escape-proof and that any inmate who tried was courting death. But everything changed on the night of June 11, 1962. That night, 3 men, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, executed a carefully constructed, months-long plan to escape. Frank Morris was the brains of the operation. Born September 1, 1926, he'd been orphaned at 11 and spent much of his youth in care homes. He began a life of crime early, and by 13, he had committed his first offense. Over time, he became known for his intelligence and his ability to escape custody. Morris scored an IQ of 133, in the top 2%, and was famed for detailed planning and cold-blooded escape attempts. A year before arriving at Alcatraz, he had managed to escape from another prison and remained on the run for a year before being recaptured. John and Clarence Anglin were skilled swimmers from a poor, large family in Georgia. Both had turned to crime as teenagers and moved up to bank robbery in the 1950s. They were arrested after a bank robbery in 1958 and received long prison sentences that eventually landed them in federal facilities and finally, Alcatraz. Morris met the Anglin brothers at Alcatraz, and their mutual respect and shared determination turned their acquaintance into a strong alliance. Morris chose them because of their swimming ability, a necessity for crossing the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Another key figure was Alan West, an inmate whose cell was adjacent to Morris's. West worked on the cell block roof and discovered that a vent led to the roof, a crucial detail the escape team needed. With this information, Morris realized the small ventilation openings under the sinks linked to internal utility corridors and could eventually provide access to the vent West had found. But the vents were far too small for a man to pass through, so the first challenge was how to widen them. The inmates stole soup spoons from the kitchen to begin the slow work of enlarging the vent openings. They had to work quietly and at specific times so the guards wouldn't notice. They chose the hour between 6:30 and 7:30 p.m., a time when inmates were allowed to play music, and used the noise as cover. They rotated who would watch the guards, and after each session, they covered the vent holes with paper boxes painted to match the wall and scattered debris to hide the work. Morris later created a crude drill from a discarded armature and a vacuum motor he cannibalized from a prison cleaner to speed up the digging. By then, dozens of inmates reportedly knew of the plan. Some accounts say as many as 80, but none betrayed them. Instead, they helped by keeping watch or pretending the escapees were asleep, laying papier-mâché dummy heads on their pillows so guards would not see the missing prisoners during nightly counts. The Anglin brothers gathered hair from the prison barbershop to add realism to the dummy heads. Months of quiet labor and careful secrecy followed. Morris realized a second major problem remained: how to cross the bay without being pulled under by cold currents or eaten by the elements. A magazine article Morris found about building inflatable rubber boats sparked an idea. The inmates' heavy winter jackets were made with layers, including rubberized fabric. They salvaged sewing supplies and stole a treadle sewing machine and steam pipes to heat and vulcanize or attach rubber, plus wood and nails to fashion paddles. They prepared a hidden workshop in an abandoned part of the prison, moving materials through the tunnels and vents they'd created. Alan West found a way to divert guards' suspicion by deliberately throwing dust on the cell block roof while he swept, which got him permission to take old blankets and other materials out of storage for cleaning, items the group used to fabricate the raft and camouflage their work. As the planned night approached, the group tested their makeshift life raft and the inflatable method. Each man assigned roles. Each step of the plan was rehearsed so it could be executed quickly and quietly. Around 9 p.m. on the night of June 11th, Morris and the Anglin brothers waited. They watched for the last guard rounds, then removed the cardboard covers from the vents and slipped into the access corridor. Alan West, however, froze at his cell door and was unable to join them. After failing to open his vent, he returned to his cell and surrendered to his fate. Morris and the Anglins reached the corridor, climbed the pipes up to the roof, and cut their way through the heavy fencing to reach the island's northern shore. On the beach, they inflated their raft using a homemade bellows device that was designed to move air without making loud noise. They launched into the dark, icy water and began to paddle toward Angel Island, then the mainland. At dawn on June 12th, guards discovered the dummy heads and the empty cells and realized the men were gone. A massive manhunt and FBI investigation began at once. Search teams found some evidence in the water, a paddle and traces of tools, and later a plastic bag on Angel Island containing family photos and other personal items belonging to the Anglins. These finds fueled the question, did the three drown, or did they succeed in their escape? Over the years, many theories emerged. Some believed the men drowned in the bay's freezing waters. The currents there are strong and the temperature dangerously low. Others suggested they made it ashore and vanished into new lives. Occasional unsigned postcards and letters arrived for the Anglin family over time, and mysterious sightings were reported. In 1975, a photograph circulated that some claim showed the Anglin brothers living in Brazil, a claim never definitively proven. In 2013, the FBI received a letter from someone claiming to be John Anglin, saying he was alive and living in the San Francisco area and seriously ill, seeking medical help in exchange for turning himself in. Authorities treated the tip as likely a hoax. After 15 years of investigation, the FBI closed the case in 1979, concluding the three most likely drowned, though it could not be certain. Despite the official conclusion, the mystery refused to die. The story of Morris and the Anglins shattered the myth that Alcatraz was escape-proof. What we do know is this: the three men executed one of the most ingenious escapes in American prison history. Whether they lived or drowned, they proved that with patience, ingenuity, and courage, even the most formidable walls can be challenged. So, that's the end of the tale. Tell me in the comments what you think. Did they survive, or did the bay take them? If you have a story you want us to cover, write it below. The idea that gets the most interest will be our next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with anyone who'd enjoy it. See you next time with an even more thrilling story.